Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Centurion Leadership Battalion podcast, your source of accountability, inspiration, and motivation to become your best and reach your fullest potential every day. Our motto, it's simple: to use our determination to crush our everyday leadership tasks so that we dominate in our delivery of services and products to our clients and achieve victory in personal growth, profitability, and creating environments for those around us to prosper. Let's get this show started.
Welcome back to Centurion Leadership Battalion podcast. My name is Alaina, your host, and we're back again today with Justin for another Q&A style episode. If you have not listened to our previous 3 episodes on ownership, go back and listen to those. We have a lot of great and helpful content there for you. Today's topic is going to be a little different. It's why is it important for leaders to be listeners? We're really excited to dive into this. So thank you, Justin, again, as always, for your time.
It's awesome. Thanks, Alaina. I'm looking forward to it. I think part of it is if you never learn to listen, how are you ever going to talk about something, or how are you ever going to get to know people or lead people if you don't listen to what they need? But actually, I didn't, as you just asked the question, it just occurred to me, like my own experience. I mean, one, my father has been a mentor in my life for 41 years, as long as I've been alive. So, I mean, whether it was on the farm and mowing, I mean, we grew up on a horse farm. So I had both my parents as entrepreneurial mentors there. My dad was a businessman in food before he started the entrepreneurial journey with Bob Dunn and I in 98. And even that, while I may have been the most ambitious, and even as Steve Slocum and Jay Brinkley came along as I was in college and still helping out with food service partners on learning, the fact of the matter, I was the least experienced by far. No matter how educated I was, no matter how much I knew technology, I was by far the least experienced when it came to food service in the room, always. So like it meant like I really had to shut up and listen a lot. I really, there were times where I had to shut up, listen, and talk about it later to get clarity from a mentor or a coach. And I don't know how you do. I mean, in my own experience, I think listening is such a key role, 1, in relationships, 2, in any business or job that you're in. And 3, I think as a leader, like people don't realize this, is people are always trying to sell the vision. And I need to sell myself as the leader. But actually the opposite is really true. One, if you're doing it properly and you listen, like I said, and you grew up listening, or you're instilling listening skills in your children or in the employees that work for you, if you're an entrepreneur, or in the people you lead, or just by setting it as a good example by being a good listener yourself, I think it's really, really, really important. And one of the reasons is because, listening means like you have to make eye contact with people. And when you make eye contact with people and you're listening to what they say, it actually makes them feel like you're hearing them. And I think active listening is not thinking about how you're going to respond or provide a solution or whatever. It means sort of engaging in it. And even after 41 years of trying to do this and learning to do it at work, in my relationships, I still suffer from it because I still have an ego. I can still be defensive, right? But I think listening skills, I don't know how you learn otherwise. I mean, in your experience, Alaina, you're a different generation than I am, but I mean, how have you learned and how have you gained experiences, I guess?
I think that you had a good point of saying people often listen, just to respond. And I think that is a trait or a characteristic you have to learn, is not to listen building up your response in your head. So as you're listening to a story or a complaint or a comment, you're just thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to comment on. This is what I'm going to say back to that. This is my, response. It's more so listening to understand what the other person's saying, really, hearing them. Oftentimes we hear people, we don't really listen to them. We don't really understand where they're coming from or what they're even saying to us because we're so focused on how we're going to respond to it. And I think just having to train yourself, not to be listening with the intent of, this is what I'm going to say, but really listening with the goal of understanding what that person is needing or what they're trying to communicate to you.
I agree with you. And I think that the thing is in business, like I have this a lot. And one of the fundamental things that I can tell you that I know if I can't do business with someone, or I'm not going to mentor someone, or I'm not going to coach someone, or I'm probably not going to hire someone, is if that person does nothing but talk. Because one is, especially as a salesperson, or they're trying to sell me something, you haven't heard any of my problems or what I'm in need of to even provide me a solution. You're just selling me a bag of goods. And so you're not building a relationship with me, which is like the core value number 2, right? Build lasting relationships for this podcast or for the Centurion Leadership Battalion. So, but active listening, because you can't have a partnership. And why would I engage in someone that can't listen to my point of view either, as well as make sure that they're heard? And I think that that's part of it. It takes 2 parties. It takes surrounding yourself with those type of listeners. But in leadership, it's important. And if you want to rise up as a leader, you need to make sure you're surrounding your life and the people around you with people that are active listeners, that can be quiet long enough to hear another point of view, because that's what it's about, right? That's about listening, is about the exposure to someone else's point of view for your own growth, right? So how do we do that in a way that we make sure that we're not so biasly opinionated, especially in the world right now and what we're going through on how many extremes, is that we're actually listening to other people. It doesn't mean we need to do something, and we shouldn't expect someone to take our side or jump our fight or all of a sudden take up arms and, for our fight. But it means that we can talk and understand other people's point of view to gain greater exposure, so we can base things based on understanding someone else's point of view or where they might be, for a better world as we lead forward, or exposing it to our children so they're listening to these things so they can help, make differences or changing, since they have a longer time on this planet, hopefully, than we do, God willing. So it's things like that I think that as a leader, you actually, by the time you grow a company like Food Service Partners, and there's plenty of people that have grown companies way faster than we have over 23 years or whatever. But I do know that in order to do it, we've had to be leaders. And I do way more listening now than I ever did at the beginning, which is funny because I just told everyone that I lacked all the experience then. And I had probably more ambition, but the reality now is I probably have twice the amount of ambition in life, which means the things I'm pursuing, I probably have half as much experience in. So I'm still having to listen on a regular basis in my entirety. And in order to make these things succeed in my life, the things that I'm growing in, I have to have a mutual relationship with people that's built on respect and trust and the ability to talk, which means there has to be active listening. It's not the ability to sell people. You can do it. You can get up on evangelical heights. I can spit Centurion Battalion podcast all day long on a microphone. But the reason I can do that is because my head is full of information, because I went out there wanting to be a good leader. I focused on it my whole life, whether it was playing soccer or on the farm or at school or in college or in my fraternity or in my life at Food Service Partners or any business I've done. It's what's been focused, because without it, the rest doesn't matter. Like people can't take ownership. You can't do anything, but the people that make good leaders are able to listen and learn.
I think that you had a good point when you shared, being a salesperson or even trying to be a business person without intentionally selling it as your main goal. You really can't be successful in your business without listening, because the number one thing you learn, when you are even studying sales in college is being a good listener, being an intentional listener. That's actually in my college sales course. The number one lesson that we were taught is all sales is listening and hearing pain points and going after, what ways can I help solve this problem for someone else? And you really can't get to that next part, that next step in the sales journey or even the business journey without listening.
And here's the thing, and this is for negotiating and everything. We can talk about leadership and negotiating in a different podcast, because I think it's important, particularly on a global level and particularly in a business level, being able to negotiate from a leadership and respectful thing. And the reality is just from this point, if I'm able to listen and I'm actually able to listen, maybe that person wants something different than I do. And we'll talk about this later, but it's always the thing. If you have an orange and two people want it, someone's always like rushing in to, let me solve it. I'm a leader, want to be a leader, cut the orange in half, give people each half. Well, you know what it turns out? One person wanted the peel, one person wanted the orange, right? That would have been an easy negotiation. Both parties would have won. They would have felt like they had ownership in the decision. And then what did I do? I came in and marched in and solved it for them. But it didn't really solve a problem. And all I did was serve my own ego. So that's where listening is important, right? And we can get into negotiating and all that whole thing and why listening is important. We can build off of this. But, holding a hard line or whatever, that doesn't mean someone's not listening, or me not agreeing with your opinion doesn't mean I'm not listening. But I do think that listening involves empathy and understanding and compassion towards what the person is saying. And it may be so far off where you are morally and ethically, you can't agree. But someone's toothache is someone's toothache, right? You don't know their lens and you don't know what they're going through. But all we can do is help. And I don't know any other way. It's why therapy and psychologists and everything works so well, is because what they really do is just listen. And that's what leaders are. Most leaders do not do the talking publicly. You see me on the podcast and probably see me on Instagram and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And I look like this chatty person. But at work, I don't really talk this much. I've got to constantly be listening to every single person. If I'm doing all the talking, I have no clue what's going on in my business amongst all the 500 plus employees. I have to listen, and all I have to do is listen, because I have to, in my day, I'm trying to do so many things and grow so many businesses, and I'm always trying to be an entrepreneur and push things to the new level and grow myself and all of those around me, that if I don't constantly listen, I don't have a clue. And I'm going to all of a sudden steer the Titanic away from the iceberg when I should be staying on the plan and going right through it. So that's just an example. It's just like we knee jerk our way around when we don't listen to people. And when we get in our own head and we get in our own ego and we don't listen and we think that we have all the answers, it's not true. I mean, I really, and probably in any given life, in 23 years at Food Service Partners, I probably made the correct decision less than 10% of the time. But what we've been able to do is make minor mistakes and minor decisions and do quick adjustments to pivots to then make the right decision. So after that, we make a right decision. I'm at 100% or close to 100% because there's variables. Maybe you have to do it twice. But that point is where it's like, okay, be willing to make the first mistake and be willing to have a low batting average. But I have to be able to be willing to go through that low batting average and have everyone experience it, and then be willing to listen to everyone's opinion of what went wrong, why it happened. So when I pivot, I'm not having to go through another costly mistake again, but I still got to be willing to do it. But the requirement is I've got to listen if I'm not going to make it again. And I've got to be willing to listen if I'm the one who made the mistake, which ultimately always I am. I'm the one who pushed it. I forced it. I made sure everyone did it. Maybe everyone made mistakes along the way, but ultimately the mistake was mine because I knew it was going to happen. And we know that that's adversity, and we don't look at it as mistakes. So because of that, because we look at it as adversity, people are willing to talk about it more. Therefore, when they're able to talk about it more and they feel safe to talk about it, it's all because I'm willing to listen and make it safe environment for them to talk in. So, that's it in a nutshell, in my opinion. I think so.
I think that's extremely helpful. And I love how you pointed out, people may listen to the podcast or see on social media and be like, oh, this guy, talks all the time and is always pouring out wisdom and inspiration. But for you to even share vulnerably that no, during the day at the office or at work and the facilities you go to, you're not always talking, you're listening to your clients, to your employees. I think that says a lot about your leadership style.
Well, and I've had how many marketing and advertising companies never really understand the business and then provide me with this grand strategic plan on something. And I'm like, what just happened here? You spent how many days here and all you did was give me your opinion. And it didn't have anything to do with where we are or our culture or where you think we are or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, well, that doesn't work. You didn't listen to me or the employees or whatever. And we're a pretty open book business. You can walk in and pretty much breathe our culture in the air, and you'll see it in the people running around, particularly as, we get the kitchens open and we build the team and the leadership. And even that, everyone, as they get up to leadership, they're taught to listen to the team members. If they're a team lead and the supervisor, they need to listen to the team leads, and the production managers need to listen to the supervisors. This is not a command and control. That's not the way it is. This is about leading up and down a hierarchy. And in order to do that, you have to listen. Like really listen all the time, and like really pay attention to when your ego's checking in and when your ego's checking out, and when you're defensive and when you're not, in your family, with your children, in your business, because your ego can mislead you, and your ability to be defensive because of your past or past scars can get you to mislead also yourself and the people that follow you. So, leading and hearing people and getting feedback and being able to sit back and hear that, you also get a determination, and you can feel the heartbeat of your business. You just listen and you can feel it, and you can feel the energy just by the way that people are interacting with each other and talking to each other. So most of the time I'm quiet. In the cafeteria, I'm not talking. I want to hear all of them. I want to hear them talking, because that mood, that's where it is. That's the engagement. Where's the level of positivity in my business? And so just really just quiet listening, just being a part of it, walking out on the floor or walking around the office, just listen to people. It gives you a gauge of the people that you're leading. They say it, their tone of their voice, the way they're doing it. That's a huge skill. Listening is one of our 5 senses for a reason. And we need to utilize it. It's important for our survival, but it's important for our leadership. So, I guess that's it again in a nutshell. Sorry, I kept going there, but thank you, Alaina.
Really helpful. I think that's all very insightful, and making sense when you sit back and think about it. People may think, as a leader, you need to be always the loudest one in the room. But a true leader, from what it sounds like from, what you're saying and just my own beliefs, is sometimes a leader is, the quietest one, the one who talks the least and listens the most.
Yeah. Because you got ultimately, in order to lead, you have to give people what they need and want, not what you want and need to give them. It just doesn't work that way. And certainly then you're only selling to one person, or your business only is serving one person, which is you.
Absolutely. Awesome. I think that that is a perfect place to wrap things up for, listening and being an active listener, and just being a listening leader. I think that's extremely helpful. Well, I would love to share where our listeners can find us on Instagram at Centurion Leadership Battalion, also the same on Facebook, and it's BATTALION. And Justin, I'll let you share your handle as well.
Yep, it's at Justin Bizzarro on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I don't really use Twitter, but Instagram I'm the most active in, and Facebook I'm kind of active in. So Instagram's the best place. But again, please share the podcast, subscribe. Hopefully it's helping. Share it with friends and family. We're trying to obviously drive leadership, particularly in the world where we are right now, where I think we really need it. So thank you everyone for listening in and supporting what we're doing.
Thank you so much for listening and being a part of what we are doing here. Please, like Justin said, share this with your friends, your family, your fellow leaders, your followers on social media, and tag us. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions that you are wanting Justin or myself to cover, we would love to hear those as well. You can send them over on Instagram DM. It's the quickest way to reach us, and we'd love to have you be a part of what we're doing here in the Centurion Leadership Battalion. Thank you for listening.